Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Family History Review Show with Find My Past. My name is Ellie. I'm Marketing Content Manager here at Find My Past. And this is Liam. He is Social Media Executive. That's your job title, right?
It is indeed Social Media Executive.
You know, you just have a moment when you forget. Anyway, I hope you guys are all doing well today. Hope you're enjoying some of the sun. It's only 14 degrees here in North Wales, but it feels very nice. It feels very spring-like. I'm enjoying it very much indeed. I've got the back door open and the dog is playing in the garden. Let us know where you're joining from today, what the weather's like with you and what you've been up to. Liam, how has your day been so far?
It's good, yeah. Like you say, it feels, I was going to say summer, but that might be a little bit too much of a stretch. Definitely feels like spring. 12 degrees in Dundee, but like you say, it's a Scottish 12 degrees. The sun's in the air. It's people are going about with just t-shirts on. It doesn't feel like 12 degrees. It feels like the height of summer. So I'm kidding myself on and pretending like it's summer.
Definitely feels warmer, which I appreciate very much. We're not going to be around for very long today. We are going to be doing our quick fire review of last night's Who Do You Think You Are episode with Ross Kemp. If you have not seen it yet, you may wish to go and come back to this later after you've watched the episode, because this will be absolutely chock-a-block full of spoilers. That is your warning. We will say that before we get into the discussion. But yeah, it was a really good episode. I actually watched it in two parts. I watched half this morning, first thing, and then half over my lunch break. And I actually thought, spoiler-free review to start with, should we say? It's actually one of my favorite episodes to date. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it was. It was one of them. It was different. I think it's you can't really compare the episodes, but thinking about every episode this series alone so far, everyone's been so different. And yeah, sometimes you don't know what to expect from episodes. And I definitely didn't necessarily expect this one from Ross Kemp. I thought it was going to be a much more sort of a local affair. I thought he was going to be one of those people who was born and raised in the same area, had family had been from ages, like a Paddy McGuinness style episode almost. But yeah, it was really good. I thought it was really interesting. I was just speaking to someone in the forum saying how you learn so much about history as a whole from these episodes. This was one of those where I felt like I learned so much about history whilst Ross Kemp was learning about his family history. So yeah, it was a really good one from that perspective. I think gained a lot of insight into certain occupations and parts of the world.
I wholeheartedly agree. And it's, yeah, okay, your own family history, that's got the special place in your heart, I guess. But even other people's family history, like as you say, you learn so much about history itself and about context. And then you start thinking, oh, I wonder what my ancestors were up to in XYZ. And I also think it really helped that I'm not really that familiar with Ross Kemp much, but he came across very likable and very interested. And there were moments where he got a bit emotional as well. And I think he really connected with what he was researching.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is our spoiler-free review. And this is your final warning that if you have not watched last night's episode of Who Do You Think You Are with Ross Kemp and you do not wish to be spoiled, you may now wish to switch over to something else and come back and watch it later, which you will be able to do. So now we will delve right in, I guess. And in terms of the things I think I want to pull out from that episode, there was something very interesting that he said, and something I agree with wholeheartedly. Like you can research elements of history and you feel like there's a bit of a distance there, but if it's your own family history, there's a real innate sense of vulnerability that you will carry with you, probably no matter which part of your family history you're researching.
Yeah, I think so. Like we always say that doing family history connects you to your past, but I think it connects you to the past overall as much as anything as well. Like you say, certain moments in history, certain events in history just become a lot more real, and I guess you've got some sort of relatability factor to it because you know whether it's someone that an ancestor you've met or an ancestor that died 100 years before you were born, there's a personal connection to that moment in history. So yeah, like you say, it does become a lot more emotional at that point, I think.
Yeah. And I think one of the other highlights for me was the pub element. Somewhere in my family tree, I think it's on my father's side. If you follow the Jones line, you end up at, I want to say the Carringtons, or is that over on, I can't remember whose side of the family it is. Anywho, there's a pub in my family tree as well, and that pub is also still there. It goes back quite a few generations, though. We're talking like, I want to say like the 1840s, the 1850s. And I've not been to see it, but it is still running as a pub, which is pretty cool. And it is on my list. It's on my list to go and have a pint there.
Yeah, no, that'd be really cool. Yeah, I think that's when you've got the kind of location aspect, whether it's a pub or a town or whatever it is. I think sitting in the pub that his ancestors used to run and drink in and live their whole lives in, basically, by the sounds of it. Yeah, it must be a really special experience, I think. And yeah, not found any publicans in my family tree, unfortunately. So don't have that joy, unfortunately.
I think it's quite special to be able to go to the places where your ancestors lived and worked. It must just be quite a nice moment, I think. There's also, I think the church where I'm going back a bit now, 4 times great grandparents got married, that I'm quite keen to go and visit, because it's not actually that far away from me here, but I'm quite keen to go and see, because it's like this tiny Welsh country church. And I don't even think you can go into it anymore. I actually think it's condemned. But yeah, I'd quite like to go to that.
Yeah. I think, like you say, whether it's like I've been to the church in Donegal in Ireland, where for generations my family were baptized, married, and buried as well, and it is really special. But I think even just location wise, it doesn't necessarily have to be a specific pub or church. Like when Ross Kemp was in Casablanca's, was it? And he said that he felt he was walking the same streets that his ancestor had walked. Just that it doesn't have to be one place necessarily. It can be an overall location, and yeah, you are kind of retracing their footsteps in a sense.
Yeah, I can't tell you much about this yet, guys, but the reason I wasn't here last week for live is because I was in Southampton doing some filming for work for Farmer Past, and one person we spoke to said that they'd come to Southampton for the day for this filming, and they hadn't quite put 2 and 2 together that this is where their grandparents met and got married. And it wasn't until they were sort of walking around the streets of Southampton that they had that moment of, oh, I get it now. So they said that was a bit of a moment for them, and I thought that was very special, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because just even when you were just saying that, I was just thinking about where did my grandparents meet, and it would have been on the tennis courts up in the northeast of Scotland, where we used to play tennis just about every weekend in summer as a child, which I've never actually thought about until now. So yeah, it is, like you say, sometimes just actually acknowledging that can be a moment in itself. Because and until you said that, I was like, where did my grandparents meet? Oh yeah, it was the tennis courts I used to play in. Actually, I'd never thought about that.
Side note, actually, my parents met on a squash court.
Racket sports bringing people together. Eh?
Yeah. since I don't know, 80s. No, we'll have to go back further. Anywho, back to the episode. The other thing I thought was really, really fascinating was that there was that sort of family myth about Ross's great grandfather having been born in Ireland, and it was very interesting how quickly that theory was debunked just by looking at a few census records and looking at place of birth. So I think we often forget sometimes how powerful just our basic bread and butter records can be. And I'll come back to this more in a little bit. But yeah, that was very quickly, nope, he was not born in Ireland, he was born in Portsmouth.
Yeah, and it's another one of those episodes that starts with a family rumor, and I watching that was thinking, oh, that'd be interesting if Ross Kemp is part Irish. I wonder where in Ireland they're going to go to. And then, like you say, something that us family historians take for granted all the time, a census record just knocks that on the head from his very first meeting with a historian. So yeah, it's a recurring theme in Who Do You Think You Are this series, I think, is the family stories and whether or not they're true.
But I think it's a really, for anybody who's just starting out their family tree, I think that's a really good jumping off point into your family history, is taking a story that you want to either prove, disprove, or just research a little bit. And I think it's an important learning for all of us, is to have a little bit of a plan. Are there the top 3 things you want to find out, rather than just sort of like, I mean, it's quite fun sort of going just into the records, just see what you can find. But I think having some semblance of a plan keeps you quite focused. And then, you can track what you're finding, you can track the evidence, and evidence is obviously so key if you're wanting to prove or debunk a myth. Yeah, have a wee plan would be my advice. Says someone who has probably never had a wee plan for her family tree ever.
I'm going to get motivational posters made up for family historians. It's just going to be, have a wee plan. Ellie in 2025.
Yeah, and we're gonna get t-shirts as well. We're gonna have t-shirts that say have a wee plan. If anybody would like one of those, please just pop it in the comments and we'll see what we can do. So yeah, and I think the other thing that struck me as well is obviously he was researching his great grandfather, but it was very interesting to do the sort of segue into his brother. So would that be his great uncle or his great uncle? I always get confused, but I think it's important. Sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? So Jen always talks about, our research specialist, Jen Baldwin, she always talks about the importance of fan research, so friends, associates, and neighbours. And it was incredible, just by sidestepping to one of the brothers, that they found so much more about the family and about the context that they were living in. And yeah, so if you ever just, are a little bit stuck on an ancestor, just sidestep and look at a sibling. Especially if they had 10 siblings, for example.
Yeah, like you said, I think episodes like this are a reminder that it's nice knowing you're a great-grandfather, you're a great-great-grandfather, and going back as far as you can. But like say, sometimes just dedicating that search, dedicate an afternoon. A lot of these, like say, I know my family going back were massive, wide, long families, 10 siblings on each line. Just taking the time to pop some of those names into searches, especially the newspapers, I think it would have been quite easy to just skip over that brother had it not been for the newspapers. But Ross Kemp made the joke that he'd been in the paper more times than he himself had in his time, because the stack of printed off articles that they had about him, the other record sets he was appearing in for the same sort of things. Not always going to be nice, unfortunately, like it was with that. It was quite a sad story, I think, overall. But yeah, like I say, just remembering the siblings, I think, is important in this.
And if you can spot somebody who finds themselves on the wrong side of the law, it's amazing then, because they will be in the newspapers, they will be in the crime records. It's amazing the things you can glean about the wider family and indeed about the family's sort of circumstances. So from all the articles that appeared for Albert, who was Ross's great-grandfather's brother. It's really hard to keep track of all of these relations. There were so many articles, and over the period of about between 10 and 15 years, I want to say. And then how sad was it to see the photograph of him when he appeared? Was it a mental hospital? I seem to remember.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, like I say, it was. I think it took him by surprise as well, because the first article that he saw about what he was threatening to do to the mother obviously was not very nice reading. But the more you learn about the man and the times as well, Chris, one of our great moderators in the Find My Past Family History Forum, made the point that a lot of people in that line of work did have problems with drink at the time. It was sort of part of the job. Unfortunately, when you were docked up, there was a pub by the docks, exactly like the one that Ross was in. And yeah, it was a recurrent theme for people in that line of work at the time. So context is important there as well, I think.
Yeah, and there was no, I don't, as they sort of alluded to in the show, not very much understanding of the fact that, alcoholism is a disease, and it does have awful consequences. But yeah, but a fascinating slice of the episode as well. And then the interesting sort of segue into Norwich, into Norfolk, that was good. I enjoyed that as well. And the thing that got me about this is that obviously Ross sat down to use a laptop, to use an online family history service to look at this part of his family tree. And I thought it was brilliant, actually, how quickly he was able to move, was it 3 or 4 generations back in the family? And okay, it's not always that easy, and they probably have edited it to make it a shorter segment, but you can do it. You can use that combination of baptism records, marriage records, burial records, census records, just those simple records. You can do it, and by doing that, you can make a pretty good foundation for a family tree, and then you can use that, and then you can go delve a little bit deeper to use things like newspapers, crime records, military, etc. So it is possible.
Yeah, no, I thought that was, I couldn't really remember that happening in the past, really. Someone actually doing the work themselves almost and doing the research. I thought that was really interesting. And yeah, like you say, there might be some trickery behind the editing to speed the process up a bit. But overall, I did think it was a good advert for family history as a hobby. I think it's probably a scenario a lot of people can imagine themselves doing, sitting at the kitchen table with the tablet out, opening up a website, and like you say, give him an hour for the benefit of the doubt for what went on behind the scenes. He's gone so far back, he's looking at all the right records, he's finding out information, he's taking parents' names from baptism records and witnesses, and yeah, like you say, it was a good advert for the hobby. I thought that was a really interesting segment.
And the drummer boy link, I thought, was really good. The fact that he was in the Marines, I thought that was considering the sort of documentaries that Ross makes. I really enjoyed that connection, actually, and just to think that his ancestor, was it Jeremiah, started out during the Napoleonic Wars, and he was 13 years old, and the things he must have seen and experienced just doesn't really bear thinking about.
Yeah, especially like say 13, which I think Ross said was the same age that his son was roughly at the time as well. And yeah, going back to what I said about learning about history as a whole, I had no idea what being a drummer in the Navy would have entailed. That was so interesting to see. Was it 100-something patterns that he would have had to remember? He met that guy that was doing the wake-up call and calling them for dinner and calling people different places in the boats, giving people warnings. And what the narrator said as well about Jeremiah would have been a bit of a target for the enemy forces as well, because you could really kind of take down the structure of a ship if the drummer wasn't there to be waking them up in the morning or calling them onto deck at the right times of the day. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting, something I'd never thought about, but yeah, certainly opened my eyes to the role of a drummer in the Navy. Yeah.
In case anybody can hear a strange noise, it's my dog enjoying a treat. I'm wondering. And I think just finally as well, as the episode went back to the great-grandfather, Pop, or Arthur, and just the fact that they were able to sort of prove that theory of A, the shipwreck, but B, when he came home, he was wearing a US military uniform. I think that just the fact that was sort of cracked by using passenger lists, and I think it's an important advert for analysing every part of a record and querying, okay, well, why is that bit there? So whether it's a date, whether it's a location, especially when people pop up in places that you might not expect them to. And then going to cross-reference as well. So if you do read something, on a passenger list and your ancestors there, and it says, oh, these are the survivors of X ship, and they were picked up here, and they were on that ship and taken there. Like, go and then cross-reference, maybe, for example, in newspapers, what were the movements like at the time of these vessels, and where were they coming into, etc.
Yeah, I think, like you say, that was a reminder. We always say to check the original images, but like you say, don't just check your ancestors' entry in the original image. When you pull up, especially a passenger list where it is a big long list of names, it's easy to just run your finger down the screen and stop when you see your surname. But like you say, checking the headers, checking what penciled in notes that there might be that have those kind of clues, I thought that was really good. And like you say, debunking the myth as well, because I remembered at the start of the episode when Ross Kemp's mum said about opening the door and he was in a US Army outfit, and Ross even made the kind of point to correct her and say, like, why would it have been US Army? He wasn't even in the army, he was in the British Navy, so that wouldn't make sense, kind of thing. So yeah, like you say, that sort of full circle moment when that was proven correct, I thought that was nice. And yeah, what a memory for his mum as well.
Yeah, pretty cool. So yeah, I really enjoyed that episode overall. I think next week is going to be Leighton Williams, which is very exciting. Looking forward to seeing that one. I have already read up on what they're going to be discussing and researching. So yeah, that one's going to be really good. I thought what we could finish with, Liam. Actually, should we look at some comments first?
Yeah, let's do a lightning round in the comments and see what we've missed. Let us know your thoughts on the episode as always as well. I like this one from Nicole saying that she liked the episode, but Ross Kemp often pops into her local town every now and then, Bellston and West Midlands. So that's pretty cool. You'll have something to chat to him about next time you see him, Nicole, with a joint interest in family history now as well.
Say hi to him for us.
I want to point this one out as well, because I actually, whilst the episode was on, had to Wikipedia Ross Kemp, because I had in my head that he was related to, is it Martin Kemp?
Yeah.
Spandau Ballet. So yeah, I had in my head that was the same family. So I realised that during the episode, but interesting, two people with the same surname and Who Do You Think You Are episodes, and still no connection to Rosie's Kemps.
Yeah, I've got some family friends who are Kemps, and they live in Kent. And I got a message from one of them a couple of weeks ago, and he said, "This is your sort of thing, isn't it, Ellie, with family history?" I'm like, "Yeah, you know what I do for a living. Come on." And he says, "Oh, I was walking through a cemetery and I found a headstone and the surname Kemp was on it. I was like, is there an easy way to see if we're related?" I'm like, no, but there's a fun way to see.
Yeah, define easy. Like, I think a lot of people do think that, don't they? You think, I've got the same surname as this celebrity. Let's see if we're related, and you don't understand just how much work goes into that. But like say, it's not easy, but it definitely is fun. William saying that it was very similar to his mum's family who lived in the same area, and my great-grandfather who worked for the dockyard. And I like this, speaking to people in the forum again, and the connection that some of these episodes are having to their own family tree, whether it's areas, occupations, or whatever it might be. I think that's always interesting as well to see. You're picking up tips. I think this is, every episode so far, someone has commented that they've picked up a tip for their own research, which I think is really cool as well. I think as kind of experienced family historians, still learning something from Who Do You Think You Are is really cool and special as well.
Yeah. And on that note, I think we should probably do our tips that we've learned from the episode. What do you think, Liam?
Take it away.
Shall I take it away? Okay, so here are 5 things we learned from last night's episode of Who Do You Think You Are with Ross Kemp. So to start with, number 1, have that plan of action. Note down the things you want to find and any myths that you want to prove or disprove. Over to you, Liam.
Yeah, and evidence is key. Kind of when sifting through the facts, make sure that you are using actual evidence, not just taking those family tales as gospel. Make sure you are proving them but always keeping them at the forefront of your mind as well.
Number 3, if you have an ancestor who found themselves on the wrong side of the law, they might be in the newspapers. This could give you extra clues that you might not otherwise find. So A, check the newspapers and crime wrestles, etc. But also, segue to that, research siblings.
Absolutely. And yeah, just a reminder about the kind of core records, your civil registrations, your parish records as well, how important they are as well, and how sort of straightforward it can actually be. It's not always going to be easy, but with civil registration records, parish baptisms, marriages, burials, you can get so much done just using a handful of record sets.
And tip number 5, sometimes more niche records can actually be quite useful. So the example that was given in the episode was the blacklisted register, people who are blacklisted from pubs. So yeah, think that even if you think you might not find your ancestor in the niche record collection, go and have a look anyway. Just, you never know what you're going to find. So those are our top things that we learned from last night's episode.
Absolutely. And we will just about let you go. Hopefully enjoy the sunshine where you are. Just to confirm a couple of things, Gina is asking when the next Friday live is. It will be a week on Friday. It will be myself and maybe a little special guest. So keep an eye out for an announcement on that one. But yeah, we've taken a few breaks recently. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of holidays, a lot of sickness bugs going around, a lot of traveling going on. But yeah, week on Friday, all being well, touch wood, I will be here. Ellie's leaving me again, but we won't speak about that. And Gina is also saying that Who Do You Think You Are has been shown on Monday next week and not Tuesday, which I hadn't realised. So you may well see us on Tuesday afternoon next week instead.
Should we maybe keep it as Wednesday?
Keep it as Wednesday, yeah. That'll give you an extra day for no spoilers. If you didn't get a chance to watch it live, then you've got 2 whole days to watch it before you can join us for the spoilers. So we'll stick to the Wednesdays. Who Do You Think You Are Wednesdays? Nice alliteration there. We won't step aside from that. And just to finish off on a bonus tip from Kim, never give up searching. New records are added all the time. And as Find My Past fans yourselves, you'll know we add new records every Friday as well. So Kim is definitely correct. Look out for the emails, the Facebook posts, the blog posts, letting you know what is new on Find My Past every single Friday.
Also alliteration, Find My Past Friday.
We love alliteration here. We're nothing if not cheesy.
You are Wednesday. Yeah, Find My Past Friday. We love a spot of alliteration. So yeah, I guess that brings us to the end, everybody. We hope you enjoyed A, the episode, and B, our thoughts on it. Please feel free, as Liam said, to keep sharing your thoughts. We love to read them. We love to hear them. We will catch you next Wednesday for our next Family History Review show. And there will also be a Family History show on the Friday with Liam and a special guest who we are in the process of lining up for you. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Enjoy some of the sunshine if you've got some. And yeah, have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
See you all next week. Bye-bye.